All right, we're in another aviary and another loft, and I'm with a group of Sions, another group of my Sions here that are all blue bars, as you can see, and all these birds that are in this little group here, all are kin to the birds that I have in Africa this year. I sent 20 birds over to Africa. We lost none in the first quarantine and lost 2 in the second quarantine, so I got 18 birds. And then as they went through all the settling and the initial training and everything, I'm now down to 12 of those birds, which is still a little bit ahead of the curve on everybody else. I think Mike Gaines, he sent a large group over there, and he's running about neck and neck percentage-wise, ratio-wise, as I am, and he's got a lot more pigeons over there. So I'll talk a little bit about them. Try not to talk so long as I did about the Sions. These are almost all exclusively Leroy Sions, and the best ones are coming out of 2 pair. I sent 4 birds out of a pair that I call my favorite, which is a blue bar cock, which was my favorite bird that I raised 2 years ago out of 535 young birds. I didn't fly him, but I picked him as my favorite because he was just death in the hand. He was just an incredible pigeon. And then I mated him back onto a blue bar hen 155, a powder blue bar hen that I thought countered him very well. And their babies, I sent 4 to Africa, and all 4 of them are still there, which is a tribute to just to have 4 out of 4 still there. And the other pair is what I call the summertime pair. It's a blue bar cock and a blue hen. And last year they had one young bird I sent out of that pair over there named Summertime, and she actually led the United States in average speed on 5 different times, and was 5th in the world out of over 7,000 birds 5 different times for average speed ahead of the United States. So that was a pretty phenomenal flying for her. And she did wind up, I took 31st and 88th last year in Africa, and she wound up, Summertime did, finishing 88th, and she sold in the second auction they had over there for about $1,600, which they said for a bird that finished 88th and was in the second auction was a high price to get for that bird. And I'm sure she was open vented. That's the cock. That's the father of Summertime. He's a medium-sized bird, always alert. He's got a heavy eye seer. Classic Leroy Sion, a little bit smaller in size than a lot of the Leroy Sions are, but other than that, if you remember when I talked about Elvis earlier, he's still basically that same type with the seer and the wattle. And so naturally this year I put him back with the same hen, and I sent 3 of those birds. I didn't like any one of the 3. I didn't like them as good as Summertime, but I sent 3 of them over there, and one of them's named Chanko, which was a very famous pigeon in the war, Chanco. We named one of them Chanko. My friend JW named him, and one of them I named Sweet Summer Sweat. And Sweet Summer Sweat is still flying there, and so is Chanko. And Chanko is a blue bar cock. Generally, they're open vented, medium-sized, soft-feathered birds. But I did raise a few this year that were not open vented. I've got a cock down there in the breeding loft right now that's tight vented, and a dream pigeon that's out of that pair. I'm going to catch him and bring him up close. I want you to see. The birds are going to fly a little bit around me. This old step ladder I got here came out of the heat plant where I work at. I've worked there going on close to 20 years as a operator that runs coal boilers and gas boilers to supply heat to the university and some some buildings out around that area. And that's what we used to step on, this old ladder here to look inside the boiler. But my boss let me have that to take home. So, as a breeder, this might be one of the very finest pigeons I've ever had. I don't know if I can show you what kind of eye he's got. There's nothing much to talk about. I'm not gonna. But he does have a very distinct violet eye with that light-colored outer circle around the pupil, violet, and then the if I can show that or not. He's a very smart bird, medium size. I've got 2 babies in there right now that he's sitting on. I think they've raised 16 or 18 birds this year. I've still got most of them. Hawk killed the only 2 that I had on the flying team. There's what kind of flights he's got. They're not really wide, they're not really narrow. There is a big step in the primaries on the outer wing, but they're just an average wing. It's an average length wing. There's nothing really special about it, but there is a big step in the from the primaries to the secondaries, and especially on the last 4 feathers. As you can see, that step, he does have a real distinct type of eye. He is tight vented. He's has that cork body, soft, has the pintail, and he's a bird that's breeding very well for me. Let me see. I'll get another pigeon here for you. Here's my favorite, and he's a big pigeon. I don't normally raise big because the way he breaks up right here in his back, where that vent right there is so tight, you can't get a vent tighter than it is on this pigeon. I had one fancier tell me, why would you want to give your opposition, the people you're flying against, an advantage against you? So why not breed pigeons that are absolutely physically perfect pigeons? And he is a physically perfect pigeon. The way the distance between his keel to his vent, there's no space in between it, and this vent comes back so tight, and his pectoral muscles, the way they're flush with that keel, it's a perfect feel down through the body, and you can see just looking at him just how healthy he is, that flesh tone he has on him. He doesn't have the dead perfect pintail. It flares out a little bit, and he doesn't have as much of a step in his wing as the other pigeon does. He does have a different kind of eye, though. He has this eye that Charles Heitzman loved in Sions, and I just call it a red-orange eye. I'm just talking about the color. We're just talking about the basic colors that's in it. It's a red, orange, and yellow eye. And this is an eye that Charles Heitzman bred for all the time. He believed that was the #1 eye to breed for. This eye right here. Time and time again, that was the eye that Heitzman wanted. To me, I love this bird. I absolutely fell in love with him coming out of the nest and I'm still in love with him. I just thought to me, he represented the epitome of what a racing pigeon should look like and handle like and be like. He's a little bit necky, and he passes that neck on to his babies, and I raised about 5 young cocks out of him this year out of the 18 that have been extremely leggy and extremely necky and extremely long casts that are almost, and a little bit heavy in the wattle, which are almost exactly what an English carrier is. I'm sure it's coming from him. But to me, it's just saying that he's throwing back some of the old original Sion blood. This little smoky colored hen, she's not really smoky, she's just an average color blue bar. That's the mother of Summertime. I've got this blood all in my loft, especially down in the other loft. If they get a weak vent, she's so light in the hand, you don't even know she's in your hand. I mean, I don't even feel this pigeon in my hand right now. She's, they talk about cork body or having that buoyancy. Well, she's got that. And then she's the bird that may be the one that's actually that's, who knows? It's coming, it's a blend of her and the cock that's, let me show you her wing again. I've messed her up. Come here, baby. Her flights are a little more narrow, kind of more what a lot of people have been breeding toward for long distance. And she's got a little step up there too as well out on the end. Extremely good mother. Like I said, her big thing is just that you don't know she's in your hand. You really don't know this pigeon's in your hand. And her with this cockbird, it's been a good thing going on. The mother, there she is. This is 155. Come here, 155. She's a stockier, stronger pigeon. At first, you might not have thought she was the perfect bird to put with my favorite, but I thought she countered his long neck and his long legs, because she doesn't have that at all, and she had a different kind of eye, more of an orange chestnut type eye. And she's strong too, like he is, and that's exactly what I get out of those birds. I get really strong pigeons, and most of them are big pigeons, and I just got lucky putting those two together. I've mated her before and didn't raise really good birds out of her, but this year she's come through for me being with that particular cock, and sometimes that's what it takes. You got to have those two birds that click together. Usually you don't want to go much more than about 3 years in experimenting with a cock and a hen, and another cock and a hen. You need to kind of keep records and keep a running tab in your mind. If you're not getting a good young bird out of one of those birds after 3 years of going back and forth with different mating, it's probably time to move on to another pair. You got too many other pigeons to deal with, instead of just keep on experimenting and hoping for the best. Move on to another pair. Move on to another, because you got, for me, I'm dealing with hundreds of birds. So, well, she's proven to be an exceptionally best pair. There she is down there with her mate right there. That's her. That's my favorite, 155. We won't stay long out here, but this is I got one bird here named Moon. Where's that Moon? This is Moon. He's out of Elvis. You see, he looks a little bit like Elvis. He's got a little different eye than Elvis, but he's that big, strong Leroy type bird. A little bit shorter cast. Tremendous body on these pigeons. I mean, they're just, you could take them to a show, you know, if you've got a man who's a real body man in the show. They're good enough to win in show, because I mean, they're perfect bodied pigeons. And you know, and yet they're fantastic flyers too. So that's what makes these birds extremely special, is that not only am I raising birds that are handled like this and they're so fantastic to look at, but they're also flying exceptionally well. And that's that's pretty hard to come up with. I raised a son out of him this year. Probably the prettiest. Right there he is. It's the son out of Moon and Red Eye. I picked up the wrong bird. Where'd he go? Maybe he's over the other loft. I thought he was in this loft. That's him right there. He is. This is out of Moon and Red Eye. See, he's smaller than Moon, which is what I wanted. He's got a real small pupil, which a lot of people like to say is the kind of bird you look for long distance. To me, he's much more of a true racing pigeon than his daddy is. Daddy's a little bit almost showy looking, stocky pigeon, you know, short, thick neck on him. He's less that kind of bird, and he's gorgeous. He's one of the prettier blue cocks I raised this year. Little Moon, I call him Little Moon. Moon and Red Eyes, his parent. And he had a full brother that burned up in the Hoosier fire, that made it to the last race. I went through everything, and was really my second, what I call my second pick bird, and could have been the best bird to come through in the end. He would have looked very much like that pigeon. But these are, I just call these the Africa. These are my Africa Leroy Sions here. This is basically what this is. They're all closed back, tight vented, you know, extremely well-bred pigeons. And they get a variation in eye in them, from the violet eye, chestnut eye, and orange and red eyes. Basically medium-sized birds. I've got a few of the hens are going to be small hens. I've got some real late hatch hens in here that are little tiny hens that I highly value. I don't get a lot of real small birds come up out of those birds, and when I do, I hang on to them. that's it for phase number 2 of the Sions. We'll go to something else. I didn't